Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar where we will be talking about the MTD for VAT journey and its final stage, and also the myths around spreadsheets and why they are still relevant and are an acceptable choice for MTD for VAT. Then we will hear from my colleague Martin Patmore to demonstrate how to create digital links within Excel and then how to submit the return through CCH OneClick. So your speaker panel today, so quick introduction. My name is Lamorna Harris and I'm one of the product managers here at Wolters Kluwer, mainly looking after our compliance products. Over to you, Martin.
Yeah, Martin Patmore, working on a digital team. I help practices to get up and running with our cloud solution. So today we're talking about OneClick and specifically around the MTD module in that.
So I'm going to start off with a quick recap on the MTD for VAT journey. So April 2019, we saw the removal by HMRC, the ability for practices and their clients to enter the 9-box information using the online service for businesses over the VAT threshold. Our priority at that time was to support advisors and their clients by delivering a VAT filing solution that allowed our customers to maintain their current VAT processes as closely as possible. We knew that our customers and their clients have significant legacy calculations and formulas within spreadsheets that make the recurring task of completing a VAT return for specific clients more efficient. Therefore, we developed an end-to-end VAT filing solution that encompasses the different scenarios that advisors and their clients may have. As Making Tax Digital for VAT reached its second birthday in April 2021, a soft landing period was granted to businesses adopting Making Tax Digital for VAT by HMRC in 2019. This was to give businesses 24 months to get their systems 100% digitally linked to comply with MTD requirements. There has been a lot of noise around what happens after the soft landing period ended and what constitutes to a digital link. Was cutting or copying and pasting data in a spreadsheet prohibited? As you will all be aware that we are now entering into the final stage of Making Tax Digital for VAT. This means that from April 2022, all VAT registered businesses will need to keep digital records and submit VAT returns using HMRC's recognised MTD software. And there is no soft landing period for those businesses. So we know that from the statistics, around nearly 1.3 million VAT registered businesses will now have to use MTD, and there is probably a lot of these businesses that are very small and therefore maintain their books and records within Excel and probably don't want to move to a bookkeeping solution. These businesses have a choice. They can continue using spreadsheets as these are accepted by HMRC as long as they contain digital links. So what constitutes to a digital link? It occurs when the VAT data required for MTD is transferred between two digital places, such as software or computing devices. A digital link also applies to capturing or modifying the data when moving it between two digital places. For example, a digital link exists when a business digitally transfers VAT accounting data to their accountant. So a partial exemption can be calculated. It also occurs when a business retains all transactions in a spreadsheet and uses a formula to calculate the total. So what constitutes to a digital link? The VAT Notice 722 Section 8 details what HMRC accepts as a digital link. And some of these are, and as I've mentioned before, spreadsheets containing digital records, so the information can be imported into another software product, transferring set of digital records onto a portable device, for example, a pen drive, memory stick, flash drive, not that we use these often these days, and physically giving this to somebody else who then imports that data into their software. XML files, CSV, imports and exports, and download and upload of files. Also automated data transfer and APIs. So the good news is that you can continue to use spreadsheets and submit these through CCH OneClick MTD for VAT module. And now over to you for a live demonstration. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Right, let me just drag my screen across and let's make that a little bit bigger in just a second. So I guess most of you will be aware that we have a module called CCH OneClick, which enables practices to work collaboratively with their clients. If you don't have this functionality at the moment, it will need to be enabled. Once it's enabled, there's an icon on the ribbon bar that when you click, what we're actually doing is firing up a web browser. And aside to what we're going to look at today, there's all sorts of additional functionality in here. We've got secure messages and documents. We've got open integration, which securely links cloud bookkeeping software through to accounts production. We've got a digital data review, which complements or replaces the aide memoire, the April the 7th letter process. But even if you didn't want to use any of this functionality, we have some tools around MTD. And of course, at the moment, what we're talking about is MTD for VAT. As we start to build out MTD for income tax, we might see some more functionality built into there. So I know plenty of practices that only use OneClick for making tax digital submissions. When you jump into a tile which states making tax digital, it takes us to this dashboard. Now, these areas at the top here, so quarterly reporting progress, and these two dashboards on the left, we don't really use at the moment. We might use these as we move into MTD for income tax. But the important part, as far as today's webinar is concerned, is this VAT returns dashboard. Because the way that we see VAT, it will be handled in practice in one of three ways. Either you'll do the VAT on behalf of your clients will give you the information, they'll have nothing to do with it. Or perhaps the clients will do the VAT and you'll have nothing to do with it. They're adamant they don't want that as an additional value-added service. They're quite happy to do that, perhaps through bookkeeping software. Or perhaps they've told you that they're going to do the VAT, but they'd quite like your help and assistance with that, just to make sure what they're submitting is correct. Now, regardless of how your clients do their VAT returns, if you've got a 64.8 for your client for VAT, and if you set them up into OneClick by registering your practice under your agent services account, and also by adding your client's VAT number, we can report back on your VAT jobs. So we can report back on all of the clients that you have that are registered for VAT, all of your clients that are due to be filed within the next 30 days, all of the clients that have been filed in the past 30 days, and all of the clients that are overdue. And if I drill into this dashboard, we could start to filter this out further. So here's all of my VAT clients listed. If I wanted to find out the clients that are due to be filed within the next 30 days, perhaps because as a practice, perhaps I'm doing that work on behalf of the client, it would be nice to identify those clients. Or perhaps if the clients have told me that they'd like to do the VAT themselves, but they'd like my assistance in the calculations, I can start to filter by filing responsibility. So advisor are the jobs that I'm going to submit on behalf of the client. The client is the jobs that the client are going to submit via OneClick, which we'll take a look at in just a second, or third party. So this is reporting back to me all of the VAT submissions that clients are doing using third party software. We can also report back on filed, which is useful, and we can also report back on any overdue cases. Now, if my client has told me that they're doing the submission and they're filing late, it gives me the opportunity to pick up the phone, have a chat with them, explain that they're probably going to get a fine from HMRC. Would they like us to take that job on for them? If they're overdue and I'm doing the VAT submission for them, then I've got a bit of a problem, but at least I know where to find those particular clients. So regardless of whether you use OneClick to do the submission on behalf of your clients, it's worthwhile setting up this functionality so you can get these reports back. And this is just part of the standard OneClick package. So a couple of things that you'll need to do prior to be able to use in this dashboard and prior to being able to do any submissions. There's a cog over on the left, settings. What you'll need to do is just ensure that your practice is authorized with HMRC. So if I was to click on this button, it's just going to fire up the HMRC page and you'll log in using your agent credentials. The second thing that you'll need to do, if I was to search for one of my clients, is when I jump into a client, so just to explain here, if I was to click on all clients and I was to clear that filter, and let me just take that one out of there. This is going to pull all of my clients through from Central. So within OneClick, we usually don't add any information into OneClick directly. Everything is added via Central. Now, the exception to that is with VAT numbers. So that was my whole client list. If I search for a client and I was to click on configuration, what I would need to do is just add my client's VAT number into this box here. So if I've got 648 for VAT and I've added my client's VAT number into this box, I can use that reporting functionality to report back on my entire client base. So let me just cancel out of this. From here, if I was to click on a VAT submission, once I've linked it through to my HMRC Agent Services account by adding their VAT number, what we'll do via an API is pull down any submission information. Now, in this case, what we can see here is that somebody, probably the client directly, has made submissions using third-party software. Perhaps they've done this submission using bookkeeping software themselves. We can also see the history of any submissions, and we can take a look at something called the digital VAT account that I'll come on to in just a second. So in order to do a submission, we touched on spreadsheets and digital links. So I've got an example of a basic spreadsheet with digital links. What I've got listed here is a number of purchases, and what I've got on a separate sheet. Oh, let me just 1 second. So I've got my sales listed, but I've also got my purchases listed as well. And I've highlighted the totals in red and green just to highlight these. On my cover letter, on my cover sheet here, what I've got effectively is the 9 boxes that what we used to type in to the HMRC website. Via a digital link, I'm putting in that information via a formula in this case. So there's information being pulled in from the sales spreadsheet that I showed you just a second ago. Box 6 is also being pulled in from the sales spreadsheet. If I look at the purchases, we can see that box 4 is being pulled in from my purchases, and we can see that box 7 is also pulled in from my purchases. We can see that we've got the calculations listed as well. So we're not manually typing information into this spreadsheet. We're using links, in this case formulas, to link through to different sources, itemizing my sales and my purchases separately. From here, in order to for OneClick to be able to do its submission, typically what happens when we click on a cell within a spreadsheet, what will happen is in this name box up the top here, it will tell me what cell and what row I'm in. So in this case, it's B16. What I'd need to do is label this spreadsheet by clicking on the box with the information for box 1 that we would in the olden days have typed into HMRC. And all I do is delete that figure. So it would have been C16. So I would delete that figure and I would label it VAT B1. I can add some additional information after that if I need to, but the important part is we're labeling it VAT B1. For box 2, we're labeling in VAT B2, VAT B3, VAT B4, B5, all the way down to VAT B9. And fundamentally, this is what OneClick is looking for when we do the submission. So I would save that spreadsheet. From here, what I can do for this particular client, I can click on the Add a Return button. And I'm now linking through to HMRC. In my case, I'm linking through to what we call a sandbox, so a testing area on HMRC, which is why the dates are just slightly in the past. But if I click on Upload, from here, what I would do is browse to my spreadsheet, and I click on Open. And we're doing some validation checks at this point. Now, we're not checking to make sure that these figures are correct. What we're looking to do is that the validation is correct. So perhaps that box 3 actually totals box 1 and 2. Box 4 is reported as a positive, even if it's a negative. I think that was one of the quirks that HMRC wanted. If there's any issues here, it will come up with a red cross. And what you'll need to do is go back and amend your spreadsheet and re-upload. But in my case, I'm happy with that. It looks like everything's okay. I'm going to click on OK. So at this point, I can see that my spreadsheet had been uploaded. In this VAT submission now, we can see that the spreadsheet is uploaded. I could download a copy of that spreadsheet if I wanted to for future reference. But we can see that this is currently not submitted. To take this one step further, if I wanted to submit this to HMRC, what I would do is click on the item. There's the figures that I'm about to submit. I could export this to PDF if I wanted to. I could send it to my client. If I'm using CCH OneClick, I could send it to my client via messages and documents, and they could use the approval functionality or perhaps our new e-sign tool to be able to sign that they're happy with what I'm about to do in terms of the submission through to HMRC. I could look at previous submissions if I wanted to by browsing backwards. In my case, let's click on send to HMRC. And because I'm submitting as a practice on behalf of a client, I've got this declaration to agree to, just confirming that to the best of my knowledge, these figures are correct. I click on yes. My data is sent through to HMRC. I could export this to PDF if I wanted to. I could keep a copy of that perhaps in Document Center underneath this, beneath this client. There'd be a timestamp, a read receipt by HMRC telling me that the information's been received by them. And we've got the same here under this I button, just listed here. So view HMRC submission details. If I was to click on that, I've got a read receipt and a timestamp. Now I mentioned the reporting, that's the submission part when we're doing a submission on behalf of a client. Regardless of whether you do the submission or regardless of whether your clients do the submission, regardless of whether you do the submission using OneClick or you do the submission using bookkeeping software, you can still use the reports that I showed you at the beginning. You'd still be able to see that the submission is made when the submission has been made. But in addition to that, under some functionality called the digital VAT account, what you'll also be able to see is any liabilities for this particular client. And if I was to click on payments, you'd be able to see any payments that clients have made. Now, we also have the option of being able to give clients the ability to be able to make the submissions themselves using OneClick. With the functionality that I've just shown you, clients don't need to be what we refer to as activated under OneClick. They only need to be activated if you're going to give them access to messages and documents. So if you're doing submissions on behalf of a client, all you need to do is add their VAT number into the practice workspace, the MTD tile that we were just looking at here. If you'd like your clients to be able to do submission, what you would need to do is under Central, you'd need to activate your client. So your client would need to be switched on to use OneClick. And under OneClick features, what you would need to do is just ensure that functionality called the client workspace for a VAT return is moved from this area of the screen over to the right-hand side of the screen. And that will enable a similar kind of procedure to what I just showed you available to your clients. Let me just drag this screen over here and I'll show you how that would look to a client. So if you've given your client access to the MTD for VAT functionality, perhaps because maybe they're using, I don't know, Sage 950 Accounts Professional version 17, and it's not VAT compliant, but what they would like to do, because you're nice people, what you want to be able to do is give them the ability to do their own VAT returns, but they don't want to pay for an upgrade. Or perhaps they're using spreadsheets themselves and they don't really think they need cloud bookkeeping software at this moment in time, or they can't afford it off the back of COVID. What you could do is give them access to the MTD functionality if they didn't want to pay you to do that service, and they could do the submission themselves. When a client logs into OneClick, what they'll see over on the right is the people within the practice that they work with. And typically, a firm would activate a client in order to use the secure messaging functionality. But if I've slid that functionality, the VAT return, over in the way that I just showed you just a second ago within Central, a new box will appear called VAT return. It's a similar kind of process. All your client would need to do is click on that box. Under the configuration, when they click on the authorize button, rather than logging in as you, the practice, they would use their own HMRC login credentials to log in themselves. In a similar kind of way to how I showed you previously, you'd need to explain to your clients that they're going to have 9 boxes, how they've calculated their VAT. They're going to need to label those boxes, VAT B1 through to VAT B9. And then exactly the same way as what I showed you previously, when they click on Add Return, we're linking through to HMRC, but we're linking through under their credentials. They click on the Upload Spreadsheet. They browse to wherever they have their spreadsheet saved. Exactly the same process. In this case, there's no errors. Everything adds up. They click on OK. They click on the submission they would like to make. We can see it's my client, Mr. Bump, rather than us. When they click on Send to HMRC, the declaration is slightly different because it's the client themselves that's doing the submission rather than you doing the submission on the client's behalf. And it's exactly the same process. What you would see when you log in as practice staff is when we jump to the report and what I showed you previously, you would be able to see that your client has done the submission and when they've done the submission. So if you're working closely with them and you know when their VAT deadline is, you can jump into the dashboard, you can check returns that are due, returns that are overdue. You can identify those clients and just give them a little nudge if you need to or feel that you should do to ensure that they're doing the submission in the time stated. So in order to get yourselves up and running and using this functionality, it's tried and tested. We've been using this for a number of your practices, rather have been using this for a number of years now since MTD for VAT first came out. We just thought it'd be a good reminder to let you know that this functionality is still really relevant and probably even more so now given the 1.2 million potential clients that need to do submissions. If you're not already using this functionality, then if you contact the digital team on the email address below, we'll be happy to help you get you up and running. If you are already using this functionality and you'd like a reminder, then again, get in contact with either the digital team or also your account manager as well, and they'll put you in touch with us. And again, we'll set up meetings. We're effectively a free resource, so we're happy to work with you to ensure that you know how to use this, that your employees are happy to use this. Also, there's a resource that you can access via our custom community area called User Docs. And in User Docs, you'll find more information on CCH OneClick. You'll find information as well that goes into a little bit more detail about how to set up digital links, if that's something that you're interested in taking a look at. So over to Ramona.
Thank you, Martin. So a quick recap on what we have heard today. The digital journey started in April 2019, where VAT registered businesses above the VAT threshold had to submit their return using MTD compatible software. And this did not have to include digital links. And it was effectively known as the soft landing period. Then 2 years later, in April 2021, the soft landing period ended and these businesses had to incorporate digital links. And now we're entering into the final stage in April 2022. All VAT registered businesses need to keep digital records and submit their returns using HMRC recognised software. And there is no soft landing period for those businesses. And I think that we're about there, Martin. I think it's now question time.
Yep, perfect. Okay, thanks for that, Ramona. So we left some time for questions at the end. I can see that there's a question raised. Sorry, on my side, it just comes up as anonymous attendee, so I apologise, I can't address you by name. The question is, how do you remove them? I've tried deleting the VAT number, but it just reappears. I'd suggest that you log a support ticket for that, and we'll take a look at why that's happening. Yeah, it should be a case of deleting the VAT number, and that should remove them for you. So that shouldn't be happening. Log a support ticket in the usual channels, raise a case for our custom community area, which is the best way to raise a support ticket, a support case at the moment. And we'll come back to you on that one. Again, any issues, drop me an email on the digital email address that was up just a second ago. And again, all I'd reiterate, so we'll post the recording up. If you're interested in seeing a demonstration unique to your practice, not that there's an awful lot of difference to show, but if you'd like the digital team to sit down with either yourself and your colleagues and run through this again, perhaps a best practice session, mopping up a few things that might be unique to your processes, again, we're happy to help to get in touch. Yes, okay, so the question is, you mentioned that there needs to be digital links in spreadsheets. Is this a new thing, as we have previously filed returns with just figures hard typed in? So when MTD first came out, and we did a roadshow about this a couple of years ago now, the message from HMRC kept changing. Digital links, I think, were supposed to be in the first iteration, and then they relaxed the rules slightly to say you can type in information into a spreadsheet as long as the spreadsheet's uploaded. That's changed now. I think that digital links were always going to be needed to be brought in, but they kind of postponed that for a while until this this second phase. So it kind of is new, but the legislation changed slightly. It was intended to be in the first release, but that changed. They relaxed the rules, but it most definitely has to be in this new batch that we have from April. Okay, so there's no further questions in the chat. I'd like to take this opportunity just to thank you all very much for your time this morning. I hope you found it useful. Can't reiterate enough, if you'd like to see this in more detail, if you'd like to run through this with your employees, then please do get in touch. I'll be happy to help.
So again, thank you very much for attending our webinar today. If you'd like more information about our MTD for VAT module within CCH OneClick, please reach out to Martin, your account manager, or even myself. And in the meantime, please do take a look at our latest insights on our website, or follow us on Twitter or LinkedIn to stay up to date with Wolters Kluwer. And thanks again.